I stood at the altar with my hands folded, smiling because that was what a groom was supposed to do. She'll be here, I whispered to myself. She's just late. Ayan leaned closer and murmured, Bro, traffic maybe? I nodded. Yeah. She hates being rushed. My mother glanced at her phone again. It's been 15 minutes. She's coming, I said louder this time, like volume could turn hope into truth. The music had already played. The guests had already stood. Now they were sitting again, shifting, whispering. I heard my name float through the hall like a rumor. Is this normal? Something feels off. I kept my eyes on the empty doorway. If I didn't look away, maybe she would appear. My phone vibrated. Ayan looked at the screen. It's not her. Who is it? I asked. Your cousin. I exhaled slowly. Ignore it. Another vibration. Then another. My mother whispered, Why is everyone calling? I don't know, I said, though my chest already knew. I stepped down from the altar and walked toward the side room. My shoes felt too loud against the floor. Ayan followed. She's not answering, he said quietly. I unlocked my phone and stared at the missed calls. One message finally loaded. Not from Lena. From an unknown number. She left, the text read. She went to meet him. I stared at the screen. This isn't funny, I said. Ayan frowned. What? She didn't even write it herself, I said. Someone else had to tell me. My hands started shaking, so I shoved them into my pockets. My mother walked in, eyes wide. Where is she? I swallowed. She's not coming. What do you mean not coming? She said. This is your wedding. I know, I replied. I know. Another message appeared. This one from Lena. I'm sorry. I couldn't do it. I had to see him. I read it twice. 3 times. Ayan asked, What did she say? That she couldn't do it, I answered. My mother gasped. Do what? Marry me, I said. Silence fell hard. I felt it press against my ears. She ran? My mother asked. Yes, I said. To who? I didn't want to say his name. Saying it made it real. Her ex. My chest tightened. I waited for anger. For shouting. For something dramatic. Instead, there was just a hollow ache. Ayan whispered, Do you want me to go after her? I shook my head. No. Are you sure? I'm sure, I said. If I chase her today, I'll chase her forever. Outside, the guests were restless. Someone laughed nervously. Someone else coughed. My mother grabbed my arm. What will people say? I looked at her. They'll say whatever they want. But you? I'll survive, I said, though I wasn't sure how. I walked back into the hall. Every face turned toward me. I felt exposed, like my heart was visible through my chest. A man in the front row whispered, Where's the bride? I took a breath and spoke before I could stop myself. She chose not to be here. A ripple moved through the room. Someone said, That's terrible. Someone else said, Poor guy. I heard judgment in every sound. I climbed the steps to the altar again. Not as a groom. Just as a man. I'm sorry to disappoint you, I said. My voice surprised me by staying steady. The wedding is over. My mother covered her mouth. Ayan stood beside me, silent but solid. I looked at the flowers, the decorations, the future that had been planned without my consent. She left me at the altar, I said calmly. But I won't leave myself. No one clapped. No one spoke. I stepped down, removed the ring from my pocket, and closed my hand around it. As I walked out, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't look back. I didn't know it yet, but this was the moment my old life ended. My phone rang at 2:13 a.m. I knew it was her before I even looked. I answered without saying her name. Talk. She inhaled sharply. I didn't think you'd pick up. I didn't think you'd leave, I said. But here we are. There was silence on the line, thick and heavy. I didn't plan it like this, she said. I let out a short laugh. Nobody plans betrayal. It just happens, right? That's not fair, she replied. What part? I asked. The running away or the lying? She sighed. I was scared. Of what? Of making the wrong choice. I closed my eyes. You made one. I was confused, she continued. Rohan came back into my life and everything felt unfinished. So our wedding was finished? I said quietly. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant, I replied. She spoke faster, like if she explained enough, I'd understand. He reminded me of who I used to be. With you, everything felt serious. Heavy. I thought that was called commitment, I said. You don't get it, she said. I get it perfectly, I answered. You wanted comfort, not loyalty. She went quiet again. I imagined her sitting somewhere alone, rehearsing lines she should have spoken months ago. I never stopped caring about you, she said. I leaned back against the wall. Caring isn't love. Yes, it is. No, I said. Love shows up. Her voice cracked. I didn't mean to humiliate you. But you did, I replied. That wasn't my intention. It doesn't matter, I said. Intent doesn't erase impact. She whispered, I didn't know what I felt until that day. That day. I repeated. You mean my wedding? Our wedding, I almost said. I stopped myself. I panicked, she said. I stood alone, I replied. She started crying. I'm sorry. I listened to the sound for a few seconds, then said, You're sorry it happened like this. Not that you did it. That's not true, she insisted. Then say it, I said. There was a pause. I regret hurting you, she said slowly. That's not it, I replied. She didn't say anything else. I realized then what she couldn't give me. Not love. Not loyalty. Accountability. You never let him go, I said. She exhaled. I thought I did. But you didn't, I said. And you let me build a future on that lie. She tried again. I was afraid to lose you. You lost me the moment you chose confusion over honesty, I said. I didn't choose him, she said quickly. You chose yourself, I answered. And that's fine. Just don't pretend I was part of that decision. My chest felt tight, but my voice stayed calm. That surprised me. What do you want now? She asked. I thought about it. About the version of me from yesterday. The one who would have begged. I want peace, I said. I can explain more, she offered. I don't need explanations, I replied. I need distance. She sounded desperate now. Can we talk again? Maybe meet? For what? I asked. To figure things out. There's nothing left to figure out, I said. You already did. She cried harder. I never meant to hurt you like this. I believe you, I said honestly. Then why does it feel like you're done? Because I am, I replied. The line went quiet again. I waited. Do you hate me? She finally asked. I shook my head even though she couldn't see it. No. Then what do you feel? Clarity, I said. She whispered my name like it was a question. I loved you, I said. Loved? Yes, I replied. Past tense. My hand hovered over the screen. Don't disappear, she said softly. I won't, I answered. I'll just stop waiting. I ended the call and stared at the dark ceiling. There was no relief. No victory. Just a quiet understanding settling into my bones. Love without loyalty wasn't love. It was humiliation. And I was done kneeling for something that already walked away. The days after the wedding felt heavier than the moment she left. Shock had faded. Weight remained. Ayan sat across from me on the couch and said, You don't have to pretend you're okay. I'm not pretending, I replied. I'm just tired. Tired people cry, he said gently. I ran out of tears, I said. He leaned forward. You didn't deserve that. I know, I said then paused. I just don't understand how I missed it. You trusted her, he replied. That feels stupid now. It isn't, he said. It's human. My phone buzzed. A message from an aunt I hadn't replied to. I turned the screen face down. Ayan noticed. You don't owe anyone explanations. They all watched it happen, I said. I feel exposed. You walked away with dignity, he replied. I shook my head. I walked away because I couldn't stand there anymore. Later that night, my sister Sarah knocked on my door without waiting for an answer. She hugged me tight and said, Sit. Talk. I sat. I didn't talk. She said softly, You don't have to protect her with me. I swallowed. I'm not. You are, she replied. You keep saying she was confused. She was, I said automatically. Sarah looked at me. And you were abandoned. That word landed hard. I don't want to hate her, I said. You don't have to, Sarah replied. But stop rewriting what she did. I stared at the floor. I keep thinking maybe I pushed her away. She shook her head. No one runs from a wedding because of pressure. They run because their heart is somewhere else. I didn't answer. Sarah continued, You keep defending her because admitting the truth hurts more. What truth? I asked quietly. That you loved someone who never fully chose you. The room went silent. I saw the signs, I said after a moment. The late replies. The distant smiles. So why did you ignore them? She asked. Because I wanted peace, I replied. I thought love meant patience. Love doesn't mean self-erasure, she said. That night, I lay awake replaying moments I had brushed aside. Her phone turning face down. Her silence when I talked about the future. I whispered to the ceiling, why didn't I speak up? No answer came. The next morning, Ian called. Jim, he asked. I don't have the energy. Come anyway, he said. Sit if you want. Breathe. I went. I sat on a bench watching strangers lift weights like their lives weren't collapsing. Ian said, you don't have to rebuild today. I don't even know who I am right now, I admitted. You're the guy who survived public heartbreak, he replied. That counts for something. Later, Sarah texted, did you eat? I typed, not really. She replied, eat. Healing starts with boring things. She was right. Healing wasn't dramatic. It was brushing teeth, drinking water, standing up again. That night, I almost texted Lena. My thumb hovered. I said out loud, what would I even say? The silence answered me. I realized I wasn't angry yet. I was embarrassed. I felt foolish for believing so deeply. I said to myself, you didn't fail. You were honest. Saying it didn't make it true yet, but it helped me breathe. Ian messaged, proud of you. I replied, for what? For not chasing someone who ran, he wrote. I stared at that sentence for a long time. He was right. Every part of me wanted to explain myself to her, to ask what I lacked. But I was starting to understand something painful and clear. I loved her. She never fully chose me. I stood in front of the mirror and said quietly, I will never beg for love again. My voice shook, but the promise stayed. I met Maya by accident, not intention. She said, you look like someone who needs coffee more than conversation. I smiled weakly. That obvious? She nodded. You're quiet but not closed. We sat across from each other without urgency. She asked, how have you been? I answered honestly. Unsteady. She didn't flinch. That's allowed. That alone surprised me. Most people said, you'll be fine, like a command. Maya said, take your time, like permission. I told her, I don't trust easily right now. She replied, then don't. I frowned. That's it. She smiled. Trust isn't something you owe me. Silence followed, but it wasn't heavy. I said, people usually try to fix me. She shook her head. I'm not here to fix anyone. Then why are you here? I asked. To listen, she said simply. That word stayed with me. Listen. Not judge. Not compare. Days passed. We talked again. She asked, do you want advice or space? Space, I said. Then talk, she replied. I spoke about the wedding without drama. She said nothing until I finished. Then she said, that must have hurt deeply. I swallowed. It did. She didn't ask why. She didn't ask what I did wrong. I said, you're not asking questions. I don't need answers to respect pain, she replied. That night I realized something unsettling. I wasn't performing. I wasn't explaining myself. I was just existing. Another evening I said, I'm scared of choosing wrong again. She replied, fear means you care. I cared before, I said. And you survived, she answered. I studied her face, calm and steady. You're not trying to impress me, I said. She laughed softly. Neither are you. We walked side by side. No promises. No pressure. I asked, what do you want from this? She stopped and said, honesty. That's it. That's everything, she replied. I told her, I'm still healing. She nodded. Healing people deserve patience. That sentence loosened something in my chest. No timeline. No expectations. Later I said, I'm afraid of being compared. She answered, I don't compete with ghosts. I laughed, surprised by myself. It felt unfamiliar but real. One afternoon I said, you don't disappear when things get quiet. She said, quiet doesn't scare me. It scares me, I admitted. She replied, then we can be quiet together. That was when it hit me. Love wasn't loud reassurance. It was steady presence. I told her, you make things feel simple. She shook her head. I just don't make them harder. There was no spark. There was warmth. I realized I wasn't anxious around her. I wasn't guessing. I wasn't shrinking. I said, I don't feel tested. She replied, you shouldn't have to earn peace. That night, alone, I spoke to myself. This is what safety feels like. I wasn't in love, but I wasn't afraid. And for the first time, that felt like enough. I didn't go looking for news about Lena. Came to me anyway. Ian said, have you heard? I replied, About what? He hesitated. Her. I sighed. Say it. She and Rohan fight a lot, he said. I stayed quiet. Ayan added, he's jealous. He checks her phone. Gets angry when she talks about work. I asked, why are you telling me this? He said, because I thought you'd want to know. I shook my head. I don't. At lunch, another friend said, she looks tired these days. I answered, that happens. She thought he'd be different, they added. I said nothing. Inside, I noticed something strange. It didn't hurt. It didn't feel good either. Just was. Later, my sister asked, do you still think about her? I replied, sometimes. In what way, she asked. Like a closed book, I said. That evening my phone buzzed. Her name lit the screen. Lena texted, can we talk? I stared at it. No apology. No explanation. I typed, about what? She replied, just, us. I waited before responding. Then I wrote, there is no us. Minutes passed. Then, I miss how calm things were with you. I read it twice. Not I miss you. I miss how things felt. I replied, I hope you find peace. She called. I didn't answer. She texted again, you're different now. I typed, I had to be. Silence followed. The next day Ayan said, she looks shaken. I replied, that's her journey. He asked, you're really okay? I said, I'm really done. At work, a colleague said, Rohan quit another job. I asked, again? Again, he said. He can't stand authority. That made sense. He never respected boundaries. Another friend said, they're on and off every week. I asked, why tell me? They said, because she chose him. I nodded. And now she lives with that choice. One night, Lena messaged again. Do you ever wonder if we made a mistake? I stared at the words. Then I answered, I don't wonder anymore. She replied, you sound cold. I typed, I sound healed. There was a pause. Then, he doesn't understand me like you did. I felt nothing spike. No pride. No satisfaction. I responded, understanding isn't rare. Consistency is. She didn't reply. Later, alone, I spoke to myself. She doesn't miss you. She misses safety. That truth settled calmly. Days passed. The messages stopped. Ayan said, she asked about you. I replied, I hope she's okay. That's it. That's it. I realized something important. Karma didn't announce itself. It didn't crash doors open. It whispered through patterns. Through disappointment. Through regret. I didn't need revenge. Distance was enough. That night I looked at my phone. No messages. No noise. I felt powerful in a quiet way. I hadn't won anything. I had simply stepped back. And that was enough. Maya said, you don't talk about her much. I replied, I don't need to. She nodded. That matters. We sat quietly for a moment. Then she asked, do you ever feel afraid of starting again? I said, not afraid. Careful. She smiled slightly. Careful is good. I looked at her and said, with you I don't feel rushed. She answered, I wouldn't want you to. Our conversations were always like this. No pressure. No fixing. One evening I said, I used to confuse intensity with love. Maya asked, what does love feel like now? I thought, then said, stable. Honest. Quiet. She said, that sounds healthy. I laughed softly. It feels unfamiliar. She replied, unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong. Weeks passed like that. We talked about boundaries. About fears. She said, I need honesty even when it's uncomfortable. I told her, I need patience when I shut down. She said, I can do that. I asked, why? She answered, because you're trying. That sentence stayed with me. One night I said, my last engagement was built on ignoring doubts. Maya said, what do you want this one built on? I replied, truth. She looked at me carefully. Then tell me your truth. I took a breath. I'm not perfect. I carry scars. I won't promise fairy tales. She said, I don't want fairy tales. What do you want? I asked. She answered, consistency. That word again. Later my sister asked, are you sure? I said, I've never been calmer. She smiled. That's how I know. Ayan joked, second time lucky? I replied, second time conscious. The idea came quietly. Not during a fight. Not during fear. I said to Maya, I don't want to repeat my past. She asked, what do you want instead? I said, a future I choose. She didn't react dramatically. She simply said, I'm listening. I continued, I want a partner, not an escape. She replied, then we're aligned. One evening, I held her hand and said, this isn't about filling a void. She squeezed my hand. I know. I added, it's about walking forward together. She said, I'm already walking. That was when I knew. I didn't plan fireworks. I planned honesty. I said, I want to build something real with you. She asked gently, are you asking what I think you're asking? I nodded. Yes, but without pressure. You can say no. She smiled calmly. I don't need to say no. I asked, is that a yes? She answered, it's a choice. I breathed out. There was no anxiety in my chest. No fear of being left. Only peace. Later, alone, I thought about the difference. Before, I chased certainty. Now, I trusted clarity. I realized something important. Healing didn't make me fearless. It made me honest. Maya once said, love shouldn't hurt to hold. She was right. This time, commitment didn't feel like a risk. It felt like alignment. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I wasn't replacing anyone. I was choosing. And for the first time, that choice felt entirely mine. Lena said, so it's true. I replied, yes. She laughed weakly. Engaged already? I said, not already. Finally. She stepped closer. You moved on fast. I answered, I healed quietly. She whispered, I didn't think you'd actually leave me behind. I said, I didn't leave you. I stopped chasing. Her voice shook. I made a mistake. I replied, I know. She looked surprised. You do. I said, mistakes sound different from apologies. She said, I was confused. I answered, you were certain enough to walk away. She said, I thought you'd wait. I asked, for what? For me, she said. I replied, I waited long enough. She swallowed. I loved you. I said, you loved comfort. That hurt her. I could see it. She said, that's not fair. I replied, neither was disappearing on our wedding day. She said, I didn't mean to humiliate you. I answered, intention doesn't erase impact. Her eyes filled. I regret it. I said, regret isn't repair. She reached for my arm. I can fix this. I stepped back. It's already fixed. She frowned. With her? I said, with myself. She said, so I'm nothing now? I replied, you're someone from my past. She cried, I didn't think you'd stop loving me. I said, I didn't. That surprised her more than anger would have. She asked, then how can you do this? I said, because love doesn't require self-betrayal. She shook her head. You promised forever. I answered, I promised loyalty. You broke that first. She said, I was scared. I replied, so was I. I stayed anyway. She whispered, he didn't choose me the way you did. I said, that was always the problem. She looked up. What do you mean? I answered, you wanted to be chosen. I wanted to be respected. She said, I see that now. I replied, seeing late doesn't change timing. She begged, just talk to me like before. I said, before I was abandoning myself. Her voice broke. So that's it. I answered, this is closure. She asked, do you ever miss us? I said, I miss who I thought you were. She nodded slowly. I lost you. I replied, yes. She whispered, I thought you'd always be there. I said, I learned to be there for myself. Silence stretched between us. Then she said, is she better than me? I answered, she's better for me. She wiped her face. You're different. I said, I had to become. She said, I didn't mean to teach you this lesson. I replied, lessons don't need permission. She looked defeated. I guess this is goodbye. I said, it is. She turned, then paused. I hope you're happy. I answered, I am at peace. After she left, I stood still. Not shaking. Not angry. I realized something important. I didn't win. I didn't gloat. I chose dignity. For the first time. Her tears didn't pull me back. They set me free. I stood at the altar again and Maya whispered, are you okay? I smiled and said, I've never been more sure. She squeezed my hand. If this is overwhelming, we can pause. I shook my head. This feels calm, not heavy. She said softly, that's how it should feel. I replied, I used to think anxiety meant passion. She smiled. Now? I said, now peace feels like love. The officiant cleared his throat, but my mind drifted. Not backward with pain but forward with clarity. Maya asked, "What are you thinking about?" I answered, "How quiet my heart is." She laughed gently. "That's a strange compliment." I said, "It's the best one I have." She leaned closer. "You don't look scared." I replied, "I already survived my fear." She said, "I don't want to replace anyone." I answered, "You didn't replace. You arrived." That mattered. Everything about her was choice, not reaction. The officiant said, "You may share your vows." Maya looked at me. "You first." I took a breath. "I don't promise perfection." She nodded. I said, "I promise honesty even when it's uncomfortable." She smiled wider. "I promise to choose you daily," I continued. "Not when it's easy but when it's real." My voice stayed steady. No shaking. No doubt. Maya said, "I promise to stay, not cling." I listened. "I promise to speak, not disappear," she said. That line landed deep. She continued, "I promise to respect the man you are, not the version I imagine." My chest loosened. This was safety. She finished, "I choose you because I want to, not because I'm afraid to be alone." When she stopped, I whispered, "That's everything." She whispered back, "You're everything." The officiant smiled. "Do you take each other?" We said, "I do," together. The ring slid onto my finger. It felt light. I remembered another ring once. How it felt like a question mark. This one felt like a period. Maya whispered, "You're smiling?" I said, "I know." She asked, "Why that smile?" I replied, "Because I'm not proving anything." She said, "Not even to yourself?" I answered, "Especially not to myself." The officiant said, "You may kiss." We did gently. Applause followed, but it sounded distant. What mattered was the stillness inside me. Maya said, "You're really here." I said, "I'm not looking over my shoulder." She smiled. "Good." I replied, "I used to think love had to hurt." She asked, "And now?" I said, "Now I know pain isn't proof." We walked down the aisle together. No rushing. Maya whispered, "Do you regret anything?" I thought for a second. "I regret abandoning myself," I said. "But I don't regret how I learned." She said, "I'm glad you're here now." I replied, "Me too." Later, alone for a moment, I looked at my reflection. I looked older, calmer. I said quietly to myself, "You made it." There was no victory speech. No one to humiliate. I didn't win by replacement. I won by alignment. I didn't destroy my past. I outgrew it. When Maya returned, she asked, "Ready?" I smiled again. "Yes," I said. Because this time I didn't choose from fear. That smile wasn't about her alone. It was about me. And that changed everything.